Your life is like a breath. Serve God while you have strength. They'll say, I wish so much I would have given my life to God earlier. So this is a message weighing heavily on Solomon's heart as he brings his musings to a close. He is concerned for the young. He cares for them. We need to live for the glory of God, and we need to start it young. Youth is a wonderful thing. Would you agree? Mm-hmm. I think so. Who wouldn't love to have it back once it's past? Looking back, the years seem to move slower. The days last longer. Sun shine brighter. And the memories sweeter, don't they? Time, as one remembers, seems to move in slow motion. While as we age, the years turn to decades. And the decades roll faster and faster to the end of our life. When times were harder for our grandparents or great-grandparents, perhaps the hard realities of life moved in sooner and at younger ages. I believe we could make a case for that. The many technological advances in the modern era have brought with it a sort of false reality, or a false sense of security. Children haven't had to work in coal mines or factories or even farms as they once did, while being deprived of nurture, education, and even a childhood that is really not too long ago was common. This is a good thing. There's no question about that, but there can be a dark side to it, and that is that it gives this false sense of security. This produces in the younger generations an expectation or even a misunderstanding of the nature of life itself. Younger generations can fall into thinking that they have plenty of time to take life seriously. I think that's where we have been for some time, not just with Generation Z or Alpha. We've been in this time where we just refuse to deal with anything serious. The cardinal sin of pop culture is you cannot be serious. Everything has to be entertaining. Everything has to be funny in our relationships. And, of course, that is a false reality. So that the hardships that one hears about will not come knocking on their door. That life is more like an amusement park than a battlefield, or perhaps a wilderness farm. In other words, allow me to encourage the up-and-coming generations like Generation Z and Generation Alpha to start living for God's glory as young as you understand what we're even talking about. Mm-hmm. There is a time, children are children, and some things, yes, should be sheltered from them. I believe in that. But as they should also gradually embrace and grow into the real world. This is not even something I've thought about mentioning, but I'll just throw this out just for your thoughts to meditate on this. I know there are plenty of studies, but have we really ever stopped as parents and grandparents to ask this question? What does it do to the development of a mind of a child, the brain of a child, and the consciousness of a child to watch 10, 12 hours a day of animation? What does that do? Well, I'll tell you, it's not good. The development of the brain is not getting what it needs. The understanding of reality is being skewed because they're seeing one false, imaginative narrative and fake reality after another. Now, am I saying, don't ever let your kids watch a cartoon? No, I'm not saying that. What I am saying, though, hour after hour after hour, is it good for their bodies to have candy and sugar, day after day when they should be having healthy food? No. Well, you know what? Think of that kind of entertainment like dessert. Maybe a child can watch a cartoon here and there, selected well by the parents. But, this, and I don't mean to pick on anybody, but for instance, the Cocomelon, where parents will turn that thing on and it will run, just out of one video into another video, into another video, into another, where the child is sitting there for hours staring into an artificial world. And it's happening. I challenge you. Go to YouTube, type in Cocomelon, and look at how the videos, I saw one, 900 million views. Now, how does that happen? Just like I said.
What's it called?
Parents, Cocomelon. Parents turned it on and let it run. And of course, that was going on before YouTube. It's just YouTube counts it. So now you can see it. You can actually see how many times this thing has been watched. So, and I just throw that out, that we need to understand, what are we teaching our children, not just by, violence and drugs and these kinds of things, but the things that we tend to think are innocuous, or neutral. We need to be very careful about that. So this is the message weighing heavily on Solomon's heart as he brings his musings to a close. He is concerned for the young. He cares for them. He desires for them to have the life that can only be found in God Himself. He worries that they will miss these truths and waste so much of their lives before they realize that they have a Creator with whom they need to be reconciled. And this is our mission for the younger generations. Not to entertain them, not to keep them off the street, not to keep them out of trouble, or not even to educate. I think the church has always been at the forefront of education, and I think it ought to be, but not education for education's sake. Education so that we can teach people the gospel and the Word of God, leading them to God. So, as Rome fell, it was Irish monks that copied the manuscripts that got to them and taught the nobility's children for free. Why? To preserve the truth and to evangelize the world. So those men had a vision that we are reaping to this very day the benefits of what they did. So first of all, as we look into this, we see live for God's glory while you enjoy life. While you enjoy life. So live for God's glory while you enjoy your life. Look there with me in verses 1 and 2. He says, remember also your Creator in the days of your youth, before the evil days come, and the years draw near, of which you will say, I have no pleasure in them. He's concerned that young people will burn away their lives and not give the rich part of their life to God, which is a terrible mistake that often happens. And those who were maybe lived in sin or rebellion for a good long part of their lives and then got their life back right with the Lord, or were saved later, as we heard a few moments ago, then many of them, if you ask them, they'll say, I wish so much I would have given my life to God earlier. That I would not have wasted so many years of my life. Well, Solomon is telling us, telling the young people and telling us to warn the young people, don't do this. Give the current of your life to God. There will come a time in your life, he's saying, that to keep the wonder, the motivation, and enjoyment of life, you will have to struggle. Amen? Mm-hmm. There comes a time, somewhere, I think they call it middle age. I don't know what that's about, but anyway, whenever I get there, I'll find out. But, there comes a time when the life has punched you in the face so many times that all of that youthful joy and optimism and motivation and hopes and dreams and goals begins to get, as he says here in verse 2, before the sun and the light and the moon and the stars are darkened and the clouds return after the rain. In other words, more and more the childhood naivete rolls away and we begin to see the world and life in a fallen world under the sun, how vain it is, how brutal people can be, how the world is so evil that we have to struggle to continue to have that joy and zest and vision for life, motivation that we once enjoyed, that we took for granted when we're young. Don't we? We take it for granted when we're young. We think life is going to be that way our whole life. Isn't that beautiful? Aren't you glad, though, that God gives us that time in our life where, it's almost magical. I think it was James Dobson that said, try to make sure your children, you fill your home with love and good, solid experiences. Not all positive, but, good, solid experiences so that years later, when their lives get hard, they have so many rich, precious memories to fall back to and say, and those things carry you oftentimes through hard times. To be able to see, your parents going through something, or your father, or your mother, your grandparents go through something. When you're a kid, you don't see it most of the time. But as you age and you look back, you might begin to remember, oh, well, that's what my dad was going through. Well, that's what my mother endured, or whatever. And you begin to draw strength from that. Well, if she did it, I can do it. If he did it, I can do it. This kind of thing. So Solomon is saying, don't waste the years of your life where you take pleasure in your life. Give God the rich part of your life. This joyful time, instead of sowing that to Satan and to self, and then later God gets the leftovers. That's terrible, isn't it? Mm. That's what he's saying.
A lot of our young people today are seeing the atrocities of the world a lot younger.
Yeah, they are.
And
they really are.
Struggling.
Yeah.
Because of it.
And, parents used to be more careful about that. We need to be more careful. Because it's crashing this evil world down in upon them. And their psyche, their spirit is not developed. They can't handle that. Oftentimes you see this where when a family begins to break up, a mother will become friends with her daughter, or our father does the same thing. You can't be friends. You are their security. You're not equals. So you can't. It's not right to do that. They need us to be who God made us to be, parents. So it's very important and we're doing this as a culture. But as God's people, we ought to know better and work at doing doing what the culture is not doing. You know?
That's why
Yeah.
homeschoolers are at the forefront going to be, because they can't indoctrinate kids with from the youth on.
Yeah.
And homeschoolers in Germany are getting thrown into prison because you can't homeschool, period, in Germany.
Well, I heard an interview recently that said that the government this was in regards to charter schools,
Mm-hmm.
and it said that they have to put the brakes on charter schools in the United States because if they just let them develop as people want, then it would threaten the viability of the public school completely.
Right.
So the government's over here keeping the public school afloat.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Because it controls that.
Teachers
And
unions.
so, you know, we have to be careful about these things. Number two, live for God's glory while your body is strong. While your body is strong. And maybe you say, my body's never been strong. And you know what? That may be true. But because some people, you know, were born sometimes with different ailments. I've been dealing and pastoring and working with people long enough to know that just almost anybody you talk to, I don't care how good their life looks, there's probably some health thing that you don't know about that they struggle with. You know, these bodies just, you know, sin wreaks havoc on them. And the older we get, the harder it is to manage those. So if God, here again, I've referred to Samip in Nepal as a fellow that's doing work there. He might even be watching this right now. But he has asked me multiple times if I would come to Nepal and help him preach the gospel in some of the villages. And I said, well, I would love to do that. But I also know that Nepal is a very mountainous country. And I said, I don't know if I could climb those mountains, honestly. I had some missionary friends that were in Nepal for several years, and that was exactly what they said. You walk everywhere, and it's all uphill. And it is very hard, you know. And so he and I was joking about if I ever went, would I even be able to do it because of climbing mountains? Well, here's the thing. Serve God while you have strength. While your body is strong. There's going to come a time when you can still serve God, but maybe not in the ways that you once could. Okay? Now, granted, I will say this, you know, the older we get, many times, the better we are at work. So we get more done in a shorter amount of time with sometimes even less physical strength because we know how to do things well. When you're young, we've got all that energy, but not a whole lot of know-how, and so we overwork. But still, we should give our good years of body to the Lord and His strength. That's what He says here in verses 2 through 5 in these cryptic comments. How many of you know this passage? Have you ever read these before? In verses 2 through 5? Okay. So it's fairly unfamiliar. Okay, well, before the sun and the light and the moon and the stars are darkened and the clouds return after the rain. He says, in other words, you're hitting that point in your life when the clouds begin to gather. You know, things aren't as bright as they once were. And all of your hopes and dreams, you begin to realize they're probably not all going to happen. You know, Jordan Peterson said, he described the midlife situation as, you know, you're climbing a hill and you don't know what's on the other side of that hill. So when you're young, you're so excited. All I need to do is crest that hill. It's so great. I mean, it's going to be wonderful as soon as I get over the top of that hill. But then middle age is when you get right there with your head. You can kind of see over the top. And you're like, huh? So nothing I thought was right. You know? My parents were right. No, I'm just kidding. So and then becomes this cloud, you know, of dealing with the reality of life. and you kind of have to reset your expectations and so forth. Well, that's what he means in verse 2. Verse 3, now he begins to talk about the body. He says, in the day when the keepers of the house tremble, the strong men are bent. The grinders cease because they are few. What do you think that might be? Teeth.
Oh.
Teeth. And those who look through the windows are dim.
Your eyes.
And the door on the street are shut. When the sound of the grinding is low, and one rises up at the sound of a bird. Can you relate to that one? Yeah. Yeah, there seems to be a point. I used to sleep like a rock. But now you could drop a rock and I will wake up. And all the daughters of song are brought low. All the daughters of song are brought low. In other words, the songs you sing are not quite as happy as they once were. They have a sense of sadness or seriousness to them, possibly. And all the daughters, and they are afraid also of what is high, and terrors in the way, fears. You get older, you're not as agile, you're not as, you know more about the world, you know more about the dangers in the world, fears. My grandmother lived alone most of her life as an adult, and I can remember I stayed with her quite a bit, as well as my sister did at times. In fact, she probably did more than me. And my grandmother, when this was her evening routine, she went out to the back porch and she locked that door, the screen door, a couple of times. Then she shoved a pie safe in front of the door. Then she went into the kitchen and locked that door and put a couple of slide locks on. Then she went to the front door, which half the door, I'm not kidding, was a couple of deadbolts, a couple of chains, some slide locks. As a kid, I was freaking out because I don't even think my parents locked our house. But my grandmother was literally locking all the way down halfway past the doorknob. Why?
She
The elderly
lived
lady at home alone.
She wanted
Yeah,
security.
in the city limits, I mean, that was a scary thing. That's right. That's what he's saying here. Terrors of height and terrors, we might say, by night, and the unknown, the fear. And the almond tree blossoms, the grasshopper drags itself along, and desire fails. What's the point here? Is the point for you and me to figure out what body part he means in all of this? Not really. The point of this is this right here. Serve God while you have the strength to do it. That's what he's saying. Because you're going to get older, you're not going to be able to do all the things that you wanted to do. Number 3, live for God's glory while you have time. While you have time. I think I've mentioned it before, but just in the last couple of weeks, someone was telling me who's a widow, and probably in her 30s, about when her husband died suddenly. And she's already been a widow for a couple of years. And, and in my mind, I'm thinking, wow, I mean, this guy's healthy, 28, 29, 30-year-old man, and he's already moved into eternity. Why am I still here? It's not because I deserve it. Amen? Mm-hmm. It's not that he deserved to go before me or anything. We just don't know. So Solomon says in verses 5 through 8, continues on at the end of verse 5, because man is going to his eternal home, whichever place that might be. The paradise of heaven or the punishment of hell. And the mourners go about the streets. That's the funeral procession. Before the silver cord. Now, he rapidly gives us metaphors of dying. The silver cord is snapped. Or the golden bowl is broken. That'd be maybe your spine or your head is the golden bowl. The pitcher is shattered at the fountain. You can imagine you go down to the local fountain to get your water, and you accidentally drop it, and your clay pot shatters. Well, it's over. Okay? You're going to need to get another pot. You're not going to have any water in that. That's what he's saying. And the dust returns to the earth as it was, and the spirit returns to God who gave it. You're going to die. You don't know when. So we have to serve God while we have time. While we have time. And then he says, vanity of vanities, says the preacher, all is vanity. Now, we have a tendency to say that vanity means worthless or empty. Is Solomon saying that life is worthless and empty? I don't think he's saying that at all. The word also means, and we've talked about this, I think we even talked about it last week, breath. Breath or vapor, like a mist or dew in the morning. So when Solomon says vanity of vanities, all is vanity. When he's summarizing what he's been saying here, he's saying your life is like a breath. I mean, it seems to start off slow, but it gains speed quickly. And before you know it, it's gone. And this is what James says, isn't it? In his epistle. He says, but you are but a vapor. You know, and he's charging the proud and the wealthy who are living. They said, you know, we'll go into this city and we'll buy and sell and all that. Was there anything wrong with buying and selling? No. The point is they're living as if they're going to live forever. And they're not. We need to live for the glory of God. And we need to start it young. Because you know what? We may die young. Or we may be hurt and wind up in a bed the rest of our life. And you know, there's the possibilities are endless. And so he tells us, serve God. Give God, your Creator, glory. Live a life for His glory while you're enjoying it, you know, and with the strength of your youth, and while you still have time. I mean, we all need this. But even Solomon is aiming this at young people. Solomon says, serve the Lord in the days of your youth. You know, so we need to try our best to encourage young people to come to know Christ and to serve Him. They don't need to wait till they're 25 or 30 to decide, okay, well, I've played. Now I'm going to get serious about life. Well, that may never happen. For the Lord may return and it's too late. You know, we think of the virgins who didn't keep their lamps lit. And they said, well, we just need a little more. He says, too late. Too late. The groom is in with the bride. The door is shut. The feast is going on. It's too late. So we don't want that, do we? We want them to serve the Lord. Let's pray together.
Hey guys, thanks for tuning in to our latest video. Go ahead and click that little thumb so you can like that video, as well as on the bottom right hand corner, click that little bell to subscribe and receive notifications. Thank you again so much for tuning in, supporting our video ministry here at Cognitive Church.